because I got dinner at 4:30.
Perfect. Yeah, so here we are again, Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. We have a couple guests today. We got IFBB Pro Peter Burmester, IFBB Pro Stephanie Santamaria, and we have legend Hall of Famer Shawn Ray.
All right, all right. What's happening?
Yeah, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
I'm good. I want to highlight my Shondow. They have the Sandow for the Olympia. I have the Shondow. It's a little bit smaller. It's almost a little bit lifelike, very small, a little statue.
That's
What's going
bad.
on? Where's it? Where are you guys at? Are you guys in Minnesota or somewhere? Where are you at?
We're Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, and I'm downtown Chicago.
All right, all right. I'm
Yeah.
out here in sunny Southern California. It is springtime and it's beach time, but I leave tomorrow for Switzerland.
Nice. What do you have going on there?
I MC a bodybuilding competition out there every August for the past 5 or 6 years, and now they added a new one in the spring called the Swiss Spring Regional Competition. Last year was the first year. This weekend is the second year.
Very cool.
So I'm an MC, reading names off a piece of paper, motivating those
Awesome.
guys, whole 9 yards.
That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, we appreciate you coming on. I know you mentioned you had the trip coming up.
Yeah, I got that, and the next week I'm in Germany. Week after that, I'm at the St. Louis Pro out in St. Louis, Missouri for Jack to Tony. Then I go to Hawaii and start planting seeds for my show, which comes up in November. That I
Right.
promote at the convention center.
That's awesome, man. So, what happened to your Colorado one? Did you just move it to Hawaii, or what's the story behind it?
No, so I was working with a supplement company called Biotech.
Yep.
That was right when I retired. I retired in '01. I got with Biotech, I believe it was actually in '05 through Kevin Levrone. Kevin Levrone was starting his own line, and he referred me to these brothers, Vince and Spiro. I got with them as one of their ambassadors and hit the ground running. And I got in an argument with one of the promoters. I won the first ever Ironman, pro Ironman here in 1990. I don't know if you were born then, but I know she wasn't born then.
I was 88.
88?
I was two.
That was my first Olympia.
Yep.
So 1990, I won the first ever pro Ironman for $10,000. Somewhere down the road, fast forward, it's like 2003, and I was complaining that they're still giving away $10,000, 13, 14 years into this thing. And the promoter challenged me to do my own show. And I was like, well, I mean, how hard can it be? And by 2005, I didn't choose a high school or a performing arts theater. I chose the Colorado Convention Center, which is where the two brothers, the owners of the company, they lived in Colorado. So I wanted to do something big in their backyard. Chose the brand new convention center, and I decided to make it a pro-am contest. And since they were still giving away 10,000 for the Ironman, I decided to give away 25,000, and also give away 10,000 for the best poser award, which was I wanted to give away a $5,000 award at the Ironman, and the promoter thought it was too much because second place was getting 4,000. I said, who cares if it's 5,000 or 10,000? The best poser award can go to the guy that finishes last. Give him an opportunity to make some money, right? And he just thought the optics weren't very nice, that we'd be giving a 2 minute poser $5,000 over a guy that is second place in the show. So when I had my own contest, I said, screw it. Gave away 25 for first, 15 for second, 10 for third, 5 for fourth, I think, whatever, 3,500 for fifth. It brought Gary Stridham out of retirement.
Yeah.
It launched the career of Phil Heath, who won his first pro show, went on to win 7 Olympias. And the $10,000 award went to our last place finisher, Kai Green. And he used that money to parlay it into the next year, came back from last place to first place and won the $25,000 the second year. As a matter of fact, the first year, not only did I give away the 25,000, but we also gave away a H3 Hummer to a fan just for coming to the show. And the second year, we gave away a custom-made chopper Harley Davidson bike. So I was really motivated by the challenge from a promoter who was the editor-in-chief of Iron Man magazine. He organized my very first pro photo shoot. Chris Dickerson got me in with John Balick. But he thought I was being snarky because I thought the prize money was just, they had grown to a 2-day expo and they were making more money than they were in 1990. And I just thought, in retirement, I could probably do more doing my own thing. And if it weren't for him, I would have never done it. I had it for 2 years there. Then I had my daughter, I started having babies, my daughter in '05 and '08. And then I moved my show to Baltimore, Maryland, because it was the only place I can get a sanction to do a show. So I went to Baltimore for 4 years, and it ran its course in Baltimore because I live in California, and I had an opportunity to MC a show in Hawaii. I went out there to MC this show, and it was a total wreck. It was a mess. And I used to perform there for the promoter Dot and Mitz Kawashima, who'd already passed on. And I just thought it was in shambles. I came back, talked to Jim Mannion. He thought if I could do a better job, why don't I go do it? So I did. I went there in 2017, and I've been promoting the Hawaii's biggest show from 2017 until today. And of course, I've added professional components like wellness, pro bikini, classic physique, and pro men's physique. This year, we're going to have bikini, men's physique, and classic pro physique. But we have the largest amateur show in the islands, and I'm here in California. I was just highly motivated because I kind of know what the athletes want. I also know as an athlete what I would want: better prizes, different judges, because on that island, they use the same judges every single year. When I add the pro component, I have to bring judges from the mainland. So those judges don't know the athletes. So the athletes flock to my show because they know that there's not going to be any bias. These are fresh judges and they're pro judges. So a lot of amateurs love the idea of being, judged by professionals and by strangers rather than the same island judges that go from one show to the next. And they know everybody and there's some favoritism and stuff. So I've been doing pretty good out there. And I actually start when I come back from Switzerland, ramping up that promotion November the 15th at the Hawaii Convention Center. I say that with pride because that promoter, John Balick, basically was trying to tell me how hard it was and impossible it was. And that's another reason why I became a bodybuilder. I was small, I was short, and everybody told me how impossible it was. And sometimes that's all you need to hear for you to like pick up the ball and go for it.
Yeah.
Man, that's outstanding, Shawn. I got to ask you too, like obviously, like you were there live. What was it like watching Phil compete against Darum? And at that point, could you tell like how far he would go, or like what was your initial thoughts?
Well, you got to remember when you win the USA or the Nationals, you have an inroad to a nice career. Right? Very few guys at the top didn't win the USA's or the Nationals or the North America. Like Dexter Jackson won the North America, Phil Heath won the USA's, Flex Wheeler won the USA's, Chris Cormier won the USA's. But when you win those amateur shows going into the pros, at least back when I was competing, you became an instant front runner. It's like the Heisman Trophy from college football going into the NFL. Phil, they didn't call him the gift for nothing. I mean, he had genetics that was just like it wasn't going to take him long. It would just take some maturing, and that comes over time. Jay Cutler's the one that found Phil Heath. He's the one that gave him I think the right advices that if he stayed with it because he was a basketball player, that he can go places. And by the time he arrived at my show, he was already beyond being a work in progress. The future was bright for him. And so he won my show in '06. Then he went to New York and won the New York Pro the week later.
Hmm.
Then I believe he did the Arnold Classic, and I think he was fourth place. And I believe he came in his first Mr. Olympia and was fourth. And then he rattled off like a bunch of wins. As a matter of fact, he beat Jay Cutler. You can see that talent in its infancy. Kind of like myself when I came up and won the Nationals at 22 years old. The pundits were saying I was a future Mr. Olympia. Lo and behold, we didn't think that Lee Haney was going to be around my entire career or part of my career, nor did we see a bigger version of him with Dorian Yates coming along. So, sans Dorian Yates, I might have become Mr. Olympia at some point, living up to the hype. Phil Heath was not just hype, he was the real deal. And Darren Charles was not in his league. Darren also won a Best Poser award, several, I should say, because I used to give an award away after the Olympia. Darren won several. I called him the king of the $10,000 shows because
Yep.
he could win all those smaller shows, but you get a big show and he disappears.
Hmm.
He never had the success that Phil had, but he had a very good career. He found his calling as a trainer. And in my show back then, he was standing next to him. But yeah, you could see the difference genetically speaking.
I think anyone who knows bodybuilding saw those photos of USA at the check-ins and knew that he was something special. Those were wild.
Yeah, that's why you got the moniker, the gift. I
Yeah.
mean, he got that right at the
And
beginning.
I loved that version of Phil. In my opinion, Phil's best version was that 2010 Arnold, 2011 Olympia. That was
Well, we can say that for a lot of guys because just
yeah,
because you get bigger doesn't mean you get better. I mean, the
great.
only guy that I thought got better once he maxed out was Nasser in '97. because he was almost there in 96. He failed the diuretic test, by the way, in Chicago in 96. Very, not a lot of people get that, but he failed it. He was third. And that was when I was second behind Dorian. And I thought that year I should either be first or third. That's how good Nasser was. So I saw he was coming. And in 97, he got ahead of me and was standing there with Dorian, and he should have beat Dorian for all intents and purposes. He was at his best. Flex Wheeler, 98 or 99 English Grand Prix. He was phenomenal. Biggest he's ever been. The lighting was right. The black curtain behind him. He looked like a freak. But in the beginning, in 93, flawless. Phil Heath, in the beginning of his career, I thought was better as a smaller bodybuilder, but there is diminishing returns. There's only one guy that finished his career at the top of his game, and that's Lee Haney. He got out at 31, 32 years old. He looked his absolute best in 1991 when he held off Dorian Yates, but there was never an off year for Lee Haney. And there was never a year where it was really debatable. Like it was always Lee. 90, he was off because of the drug test, but we were all off equally. But he was still head and shoulders above Lee Labrada, who was 5'5", 5'6", and Lee was towering over him. Very few bodybuilders towards the back end of their career get better, including Ronnie Coleman. He was not at his peak, including Jay Cutler. He was not at his peak. And so they wind up coming backwards, and the younger guys come up. Dexter Jackson had a very good run, and once he won the Olympia in 2008, he kind of maxed out, but he continued competing in the right shows. And if you compete in the right shows, not the Olympia, Dexter Jackson piled up the most wins of any bodybuilder in the history because he would choose these shows very strategically. We don't have that today.
Yeah.
Samson competed once or twice, but outside of him, none of the guys compete more than once.
But Dexter's another great example of, the reason he had such a long career is he never chased size. He knew
Yes,
his
and
game.
he didn't
He
mix up the
stayed in his
formula.
lane. He didn't do anything crazy in the gym, didn't do anything crazy outside the gym.
Yeah,
Um,
very
Now,
consistent.
we continue to see the success in the later years. Majority of bodybuilders now at the Olympia stage are in their 40s or late 30s. In your era, as you mentioned, Lee Haney walked away young. You walked away young. Guys were finishing up in, 28, 29. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because there is a bigger requirement for size now and guys are taking longer to put that muscle tissue on?
Yeah, I
You
think,
think guys are turning pro later?
you got to remember there's something to be said for the magazine era, which you guys kind of missed. There was some anticipation to see who's going to be on the cover, anticipation to read those arm, leg training, back routines, something to look forward to, and then to glean the wisdom from the articles, to read the gossip piece. We didn't have the digital age where everything was instant gratification. You had to wait. And we would read the magazine from cover to cover. Like I would know the photographers' names. I would know, where the stores were where I can go get the supplements and things. We got started as teenagers. Remind me, I was a teenage national champion. Flex Wheeler was a teenage upper echelon bodybuilder. Jay Cutler was a teen national champion. He won his class. Branch Warren as well. I remember competing against guys like Bob Ciccarello and David Lieberman and some of these guys that are still doing the business, but we don't find our guys right now that have a teenage resume at all. I mean, we never heard of Derek Lunsford as a teenager. We never heard of Big Ramy as a teenager. Even Samson. I mean, Samson's 38, 39. These
Yeah.
guys may have been lifting as teenagers, but they didn't have the platform in the teenage division. And now we don't even have the teenage division. So you don't have that farm league where you have like-minded teenagers that can follow each other. I remember looking at Eddie Robinson, Shane DeMora, Franco Santarillo, and looking behind me at Chris Cormier and Jay Cutler and the teenagers coming up behind me. You take that away, a teenager comes out of high school, they don't really stumble into the gym and start bodybuilding because they don't see any other young guys like that. I was doing it in high school.
Yeah.
So they wind up getting there a little bit later in their late 20s, early 30s. And then you got old men bodybuilders. I mean, 38, 39, when I was coming up was old. I retired at bodybuilding at 35 years old. Again, Lee Haney was 31, 32. We thought 35 was about the age to get out. We had one anomaly. That was Albert Beckles. Albert Beckles was 46 years old, I believe, in 1985. He got second place to Lee Haney. 1985, I won the Junior World Championships in Australia. Albert was the guest poser coming off of getting second to Lee Haney. I had a front row seat to see the second greatest bodybuilder on the planet. And he was the oldest bodybuilder competing as a professional. So I saw the finish line. I'm 20. I got like a 20-year career, at least looking at this guy, if I do things right. And he was my height, much more mature, much more densely muscle. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I got a career here if I just stay the course. And the irony of all of that was my first Olympia when you were 2 years old in Los Angeles, 1988. I think I was 13th place and Albert Beckles was like 18th. And I remember it so vividly how fast those 3 years went. Because it was in 85 that I won in Australia and he was the featured guest poser. And this was a show I should have been in the top five according to the rumor mill after winning the Nationals. I came in off, I was busy, I was moved in my first apartment, had my first car, and I wasn't bodybuilding. I was just going through the motions thinking I could do it. Got served up some humble pie with some great bodybuilders, but I landed in the middle of the pack, and one of the guys behind me was Albert, along with Robbie Robinson and a few other guys. And I thought, if I can beat Albert Beckles when I'm off, well, I certainly can beat Mike Quinn, who just got fifth place in the Mr. Olympia. Mike won the USA the year I won the Nationals. And I was a better bodybuilder structurally, but he was better in shape. And so condition is what propelled him into that top five. And I thought, I'm not coming back to this show till I'm ready. And when I came back in 1990, and 2 years later, I leapfrogged from 13th to third place. Mike Quinn was never compared to me on a bodybuilding stage ever again. Of course, he famously went over to the WBF, but small milestones like that, they kind of gave me the energy to continue doing what I was doing as a young bodybuilder. And of course, by the time I got to the mountaintop, I'd been there for 12 years. It was time for me to turn the page and do something different. At 35, I believe Derek Lunsford is maybe 30, 32.
30. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's right in the middle of it, right? He's already got a Sandow trophy, an Arnold
Yeah.
Classic trophy. He can pace himself in the next 5 years, get out while he's young and get on to the next phase of his life, or he can continue going because there's more longevity today in bodybuilding. But I do believe some of these guys max out. And when you max out, you got to know when to get out.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler will tell you that. Phil Heath will tell you that. Even Flex Wheeler. There is a time in a season that bodybuilder individually, whether it's through losing, through gaining the excess weight that you can no longer rip up, injuries, or just other guys coming up behind you, there's a time in a season to get out.
And fortunately, we've had some good role models currently do that with Chris Bumstead stepping away at the top.
Smart.
Ian Valier recognizing, hey, I'm 30. I'm probably not going to place any better at the Olympia. Let's get out. So I think there's some good examples now. But to your point, I started when I was 12, 13 years old. I was 5'4", so I looked up to yourself. I looked up to Lee Priest. I looked up to these guys. And I waited to compete because I knew, hey, that's the size I have to be at. So I didn't do my first show till I was 22. And I still chase that size. Now the guys that are 5'4" stepping on stage at 212.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing called evolution. Look,
Yeah.
there's not better
No,
drugs,
no.
right? But what I think is happening here is that you're just getting grown-ups participating. We had kids participating. We built the foundation in our teenage years, so the quality is better when we become men. But what we have is men getting and dabbling into things that they don't even know what they're taking because they have so many other outside influences saying, try this, try this, try this, try that, and they don't build the base, right? They didn't have those teenage years to build the base and then take the next step. Listen, if drugs didn't work, people wouldn't take them. So I'm not being hypocritical here, but this is a journey of self-exploration. If the drugs were bad for you, then the smart bodybuilders would not take them. We know they work. And there's a fine line between use and abuse. The outside world looks at our sport as a dangerous minefield of just abuse. And we know that there's not abuse because now we have these HRT companies that are actually prescribing drugs medicinally to guys my age and younger, and it's legal. The same way that marijuana we now know is a medicinal, legally used drug. They don't even want to call it a drug, right? So we've become more educated as to what anabolics do, testosterone and growth hormone. We have a problem with insulin. We have a problem with pseudo coaches that pretend to be doctors that are just masquerading as drug dealers. And we have a thing called ignorance. And there's a lot of bodybuilders that are ignorant to the medicinal side and very focused on the training. They want to just be told what to take, told what to do, and I'll go in the gym and handle my part. But I don't want to too much pharmacology over here. I don't want to learn it. And when we were teenagers coming up, it was right there in black and white. It was in your face. You read the books, you read the magazines, you talked to people. We self-educated, and through self-exploration and trial and error, we find out what works for us. I'm not going to take what you take just because you tell me to take it. I find that's more common than not. When I was younger, we had a lot more skepticism and a lot more trial and error. I'll try a little bit. If a little bit's good, I'll try a little bit more down the road. And we had grown up advices from bodybuilders that genuinely had our best interest to tell us to pace yourself, slow down, don't go into the deep end. Right now, I see guys jumping in the deep end, and they got very short careers as a result of it.
So how do you change this? What is your opinion? My opinion is we change it with the judging. The judges start to reward quality over size. I think
You know,
anyone with the
I'm laughing because that was my whole shtick, my entire
yeah,
career.
I think
I always say
anyone with a
quality is better
trained
than
eye,
quantity.
Yep.
anyone with a trained eye can recognize this detail, the detail in the physique. It looks fresh, it looks healthy, it looks like the muscle wasn't put on in 2 years.
Yeah.
The waist is still intact. Um, what are your thoughts on, how do
Well, I
you
mean,
positively impact?
I'll be honest. Listen, this is a sport. I've always approached it as an artist. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in control of my body the same way I would be in control of my music. I may not be playing all the instruments, but I'm in control of my body. So when it comes down to the comparison between music and me being an artist, um, for example, on an album, you have a lot of different people playing different instruments, mixing, and all of this stuff. So in bodybuilding, we have coaches, we have meal prep companies, we have the tanning company, the hair and makeup company. You know, we have all of these other integral parts. Even some people have posing coaches. But for me as an artist, sorry, I gotta.
You might have accidentally hit the.
He'll be on again.
Yep.
We'll
A moment.
yeah, we'll wait till he jumps on again. So you started at 13, Peter, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, it's my first day in the gym.
Okay. I started when I was 14.
Hmm.
That's when I started.
I remember because I got kicked out. I was too young. And then I took the trainers were like, hey, if he comes in with one of our personal trainers and takes a class and we can verify that he's not going to hurt himself, we'll give him this like card that gives him permission. And that's how
Yeah.
that started.
No one told me what to do if someone calls. No, my
So
bad. My daughter.
No, you're good, man. We're good. We're still good.
I don't know
we
where
lost you at you talking about being an artist.
Yeah.
Okay, pick up now.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. I always looked at my bodybuilding as an artist, and when you compare it to music, like you have different people working, but me as an artist or a painter, I should say, I wanted control over me. I didn't think I knew everything. I listened to my elder statesmen. I watched and I learned. I'd go to Venice Beach sometimes, which is an hour each way, and I'd go up and sit on that stationary bike for 45 minutes, and I'd look down at the professionals bodybuilding, and it was just like reading an article in a magazine. I'm watching the technique, I'm watching what they're wearing, I'm watching if they're focused, I'm watching if they're bullshitting around. But I was learning. I would go there to learn, and then I would bring that back with me to my gym, and I would take that out on the people that I was training with at my gym because they're doing it on another level at Gold's Gym. You know, when Charles Glass was down there training the guys I was up against, Flex Wheeler and Chris Cormier and these guys, I would go down there and watch and see what they're doing, and I would come home and I would glean that into my own workout sometimes just because I needed that for myself. But I took pride in the fact that it was my posing routine. I took pride in the fact that I have to go out here and tan in the sun and sweat and then go in the posing room and sweat and squeeze and flex and copy the poses in the magazines. So I was like a warrior at war. I liked the idea that I was doing this by myself. It wasn't a team sport. I couldn't just call my buddy and say, let's go to the gym. It just wasn't a team sport. I went to 20 different gyms in my neighborhood just because I like variety. And now on the other side of retirement, Some of these guys can't even go to the gym unless their girlfriend's taking them to the gym or cooking their meals, and they got their coach checking in on FaceTime and Zoom. And while that may be okay for some, I didn't come from that, right? So I'm so old school. Like if I gave my dad he's rest in peace, 15 years. If I handed him an iPhone, he wouldn't know what to do. He'd be mad that it's just not a phone. I want to just use it to call because it's a phone, but we know now it's a computer. For me, I would go in the gym. I would do what I'd studied the night before through the magazine or watching a video. I would copy the things that I could memorize and I would try it out on other people, but I was not really good with someone telling me what to do. John Brown, who discovered me, told me to copy what he does, do what I do. So if he did 100 reps, I had to do 100 reps. I couldn't ask why. He's doing 100. If you've never done 100 reps on leg extensions to start your leg routine, try it. I don't give a crap what
I
kind of weight,
have.
even if it's 20 pounds, just try starting off your leg routine
Yeah.
just for variety. One time with 100 repetitions, and then you have to do 3 sets of those. Okay, we were doing leg extensions for 100 reps, and then going over to the leg press for 50, and then come back to the leg extension for 100. And it didn't matter how much weight I used. What mattered was that I did 100 and I count them out loud. So that was a certain amount of discipline that was instilled in me by someone who was just trying to make me quit, who was trying to make me throw up, who was trying to gain satisfaction on showing me that he's a professional and I'm a copycat and I shouldn't be able to walk in the gym and do what a pro does. So he's going to teach me a lesson because he knew that he could do it, but he knew that I couldn't. I failed many times. I quit many times. And the discipline I got was I couldn't just leave the gym. He would tell me to go sit over there and watch. And I had to watch him finish his workout. There's nothing more humbling than working out with a grown man that you quit on. And he says, go over there and watch me. You have to, you got to leave, you got to watch the whole workout. Then you go home and you think, tomorrow I'm not going to quit. I just kept coming back. And when you get to that point where you are suddenly fighting back and the teacher, the coach, the mentor sees that you're trying to fight back, he started helping me then, but helping me in a way that gave me encouragement. He showed me how to do it. He didn't help me do it. He just showed me the way. That's lost. So now bodybuilders hire a coach and they want to be told what drugs to take. They want to be shown how to work out. They don't want to do anything. Why? Because when I interview them, they don't know. They don't even know the next contest they're doing. I got to talk with my coach. It's up to my coach. My coach. It is the dumbing down and pussification of bodybuilding where the bodybuilder, the artist, doesn't know anything about what they do because they're paying the coach to give them direction. And I fell out of like, not love, I fell out of like with bodybuilding because the bodybuilder has dumbed it down so much that they just pass it over to a guy that's not going through it the way that I did. I had to go through it firsthand. I know every rep, every set, I felt it all. So what you saw was all a reflection of what I did. So if it was good and I got rewarded, great. If it was bad and I didn't get rewarded, like my first Olympia, it was on me. But I don't have that sympathy um, in me when I interview and I watch guys on stage that are not prepared. I am very brutal when it comes down to critique, and I'm unforgiving when someone thinks they deserve some type of participation medal because they overcame some obstacles to get to the gym, get to the stage. The stage is not a place where I'm clapping because you lost 50 pounds. Everybody has their own journey. It's for winning and losing. Either you win or you lose. Second place is the same as last place because we're all showing up to win. There's a reason why I did 13 Olympias, and it's because I kept losing. I always said, if I win that sucker, I'm gone. I'm in the sunset. When Samson won the Olympia last year, they were asking what he should do. I said he should quit. Get out. Like Lee Haney. There's nowhere to go but down. But now the money has gotten to such a degree that it's a real business. And I fought for that my entire career, that these guys should be paid more. They're being paid enough that you can get second or third, and it's worth the effort. So Samson wound up going into the Arnold. He lost to a former Olympia, got $100,000. That's a nice paycheck, $120,000. That's a lot in this economy.
Yeah.
That was what the winner got when I was competing with Dorian Yates. As a matter of fact, it was more than what the winner got. So it's harder to walk away when you have that in front of you.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere to go after you win the Olympia but down, as far as I'm concerned, these days.
And now you have Derek, who might rattle off a historic year if he wins the Arnold, Pittsburgh, and the Olympia in terms of prize money.
I saw Derek Lunsford coming when he guest posed 3 years ago. Jesus, it's been 3 years.
In Pittsburgh.
In
Shocked
Pittsburgh.
everyone.
I
Mhm.
told him, I said, if you were in last year's Olympia, you'd be in the top three. So he
Yeah.
goes to the Olympia, and I believe he got second.
Mhm.
And then
Yep.
he becomes
Second and then
Mr. Olympia.
first.
So
Yeah.
he has another shot right now to make history by going back and doing what very few people have done. I think Jay Cutler, I believe, was the only one to win the Olympia, lose the Olympia, and win it back.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he can make history. Time is on his side. Age is in his favor. He's got his head screwed on. The only thing that can stop him is an injury. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But it makes the Mr. Olympia this year all that more exciting for me as a fan, because that's what I am these days. But I'm very disenchanted with the dumbing down and the pussification of bodybuilding as it relates to the bodybuilders, knowing what they're doing, how they got there, and owning the space, including their posing.
So as a fan of the sport, who are the physiques that excite you? Whether it be the person and their approach to the sport or
Yeah.
just their aesthetic physique.
Well, one that excites me is Andrea Shaw on the female bodybuilding side, because
Yeah.
she's the personification of what Linda Murray was. And what Linda Murray did very quietly was win 8 Ms. Olympia titles. Now, Iris Kyle has won more. She's won 10. Arguably, you could say she's the greatest female bodybuilder ever, because she has 10 Olympia wins. But I think Linda Murray was a better package, the same way as Sid Gillen was in the women's figure. She won 8 of those. Right now, Andrea Shaw, on paper, is on par to win the next 5. Right? She's going for number 6 this year. And I watched the first one happen. I'm more impressed with what she's doing. Along the way, I don't think we have that in bodybuilding. There's no bodybuilder going to come and rattle off 5, let alone 8 Olympia titles. But I'm more attracted to the classic physique, because they're just, they have this thing they have to fit in height and weight wise, that takes me back to Bob Paris and Barry DeMay, some of the physiques that I liked, the Roy Lelemeyers. These were 6-foot bodybuilders that weren't 260 pounds with big bellies, right? These were classically shaped physique, like Chris Bumstead. I don't know all the names of some of them, and I do watch and I admire them because they put the time and effort into their presentation, which is why I watch it. Very hard for me to watch men's bodybuilding. I mean, let's get to the pose down and get to the awards so we can find out who won. These guys are lumbering around the stage. They're not taking pride in their mandatories. After one round of posing, they're bent over at the waist. They're huffing and puffing. There's no stage presence. There's not very forgettable routines. The music is background noise. I'm not a big fan of open bodybuilding. We got like 3 guys right now that are in the hunt. And after that, it's alphabet soup. So I come from an era where the top 10 guys were all megastars, including Mike Matarazzo, who was getting 10th in the Olympia. We don't have that now. The guy that gets 10th in the Olympia, we don't even know who that is, where he's going to come from, but he's going to go home with nothing. So I'm still of the opinion that the Olympians all should be getting checks on the stage. When I was there, I fought for that, and we watched 10th all the way up to first place get a check.
Mhm.
Granted, we have more divisions. Granted, we're giving away more prize money, but I'm still of the belief that the Olympics should be more elite. It should be harder to qualify, and everybody should walk away with some money in their pocket.
Shawn, I got a two-parter for you. So let's see. So this was '01. So I was 18 when I got the chance to train with you. We trained for the 2 days. You picked me up
Yeah.
in the red Hummer, and you just kicked my ass. I mean,
My retirement, yeah, I retired that year, but go ahead.
yeah. So I remember talking to you, and we were at Coliseum, and I mean, you were like locked in. You were just about to start your prep, and I remember like it was a very motivating. Like you seemed like mentally you were all in. So what changed from like that Olympia to where you said at 35, like that was it for you, that was the end?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
mean, go ahead. Two-parter.
yeah, the quick two-parter. And then, of course, that year you had kind of the backlash of at the press conference, you're voicing your opinion where you're like, hey, judges have to be held accountable. Which judges are giving me, fifth place or which judges has me in second.
Yeah.
Um, and what was the backlash after like the press conference or after the show?
Well, going into the 2001 Olympia, um, I had found out that at the top of the year, we all have to sign a contract to compete. And
Hmm.
you're threatened with a $5,000 fine if you don't, or you're not able to guest perform at any NPC sanctioned shows, which is the affiliate of the IFBB. So this is the encouragement to renew your IFBB Pro card. so that you can make these appearances around the country, and then to sign up for the Olympia if you're going to compete in the Olympia if you're qualified. Of course, I qualified every year by being in the top 5. Somewhere along the way, somewhere like July, I found out that Kevin Levrone didn't pay for his IFBB Pro card, nor did he sign the Olympia contract. Now, mind you, I'm a guy that failed a drug test in 1990 and
Yep.
didn't bitch, moan, and complain. I had to give the trophy back, and I never got the prize money. Fair enough. I went on with my business, and I went to the Olympia, and I got 3rd place. And I went back, and I won the competition the following year. No harm, no foul. These rules were in place because you can't have a show unless you have the athletes committed to the show. Anything barring a medical injury. So they let Kevin in the show. I find out as we get closer to August, the show's in September. They let Kevin in the show. Along the way, I'm just not enjoying the process towards the coming up of the competition, because I'm finding out that one of the judges is really tight with Ronnie Coleman. Rest in peace to Shea Ebert. That was the judge I got in an argument with at the press conference.
Mm-hmm.
So then the press conference comes up, and I am just on one. I let him have it because I think that if any change is going to happen, we got to do it in front of a crowd, because nothing happens behind closed doors. So I let him know, from the prize money to the judging to the transparency to the rotation. It's well documented. It's on YouTube. I had very little support. Kevin Levrone got on the back end, but Ronnie Coleman thought it was us against him, and it really wasn't about Ronnie. Ronnie had the biggest voice. He should have been the one arguing these points, but why would the champion complain about winning? So he thought we were against him. But when the show was over, I found out that Jay Cutler had failed the diuretic test. Everyone had to take a piss test. Later on, we find out that Cutler failed the test, and he threatened a lawsuit. They threw the testing out. He kept the $60,000. I wound up in 4th place that year. Kevin Levrone, the guy that never signed the Olympia contract or the IFBB contract, he wound up in 3rd place that year. Jay Cutler, who failed the diuretic test, he was 2nd place that year. So if you take Kevin out because he was not eligible to compete, I'm in 3rd. You take Jay Cutler out because he failed the diuretic test, I'm at least in 2nd place. To me, that has merit. That's not a whiny bitch. That's not somebody that's just sour grapes. If you follow it to the letter of the law, which is their rules, not mine, I should have wound up in 2nd place.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have had 60,000 instead of, I think, the 30,000 that I got, or 20. It's a pretty big, significant difference in the year 2001. And it's a bitter pill to swallow when I go back and I have to hear the process of the reasons. Pretty lame. Wayne DeMilia told me that Joe Weider wanted Kevin Levrone in the show. But that's not what the rule book says. Your rule book says if I don't sign the contract, if I don't pay my IFBB dues, I can't compete. That's what the rules say. So Kevin should have been disqualified.
Yep.
He tells me that Joe Weider wants on the show. Jay Cutler's was, well, he had a lawsuit or was threatening a lawsuit that the chain of command from the diuretic piss test, that they were left in a room overnight Friday. They were left overnight in a room that was unsecure. I don't care if they were left in a room unsecure. If they came back positive, it's positive. That you guys take that up with your legal whatever. But I just realized I was too smart for the sport. I'd gone as far as I could. Ronnie Coleman wasn't going anywhere, regardless of whether or not I was in 2nd place that year. But when you measure all of these things going on, and by the way, the judge, Shea Ebert, that passed away, her comeback to me was, well, you haven't changed in 10 years. And I said, well, you haven't even seen me yet, right? I don't even know that she ever judged me at that point. But they took her off the judging panel that night. Mm-hmm. So she put her foot in her mouth, but that was an opinion that could have marked me down. So all of these things were happening at the same time. And I just thought, you know what? This is it. This is my exit. I did the Olympia. As a matter of fact, I had a routine. If you go back and you look at the 2001 posing routine, I phoned it in. I was totally disconnected with it. And it was one of my hit songs, the one I turned pro to, I'm Telling You I'm Not Going, by Jennifer Holliday. And I just was 100% gone. I was done. And I thought, what's the next chapter? Like when I came back and I realized all that and had the little prize money, I thought, you know what? It's time for me to go make babies. I want to have a kid, because I had the trappings of success. I had a house in Chino Hills. I had a condo in Newport Beach, and I had a townhouse in Las Vegas. I had cars, motorcycles, and a dog. And I thought, there's got to be something more, right? My nieces and nephews are growing up. I've been to several birthdays, and I'm looking at children a little bit differently. And I figured, you know what? If I'm not training for the Olympia, what am I doing? Right? Because that was a big part of my life every year for 12 years in a row. And so I called Joe Weider and I told him, I said, hey, Joe, I'm not going to do the 2002 Mr. Olympia. I'm going to take a break. I've never had a break. And by the way, I had a 1 year contract in 1988 that turned into my entire career on a verbal. We never wrote anything down, but every year I got a raise and it went up. And he said, "Yeah, go ahead, take a break. Go ahead, take." So gave me that free year off, and that was the year that I got engaged. And the following year, I got married in 2003. So I told him in three, I'm not going back. And I rode my contract out with him. That was also the year they sold Weeder Publications. So he was going out of business, and now I'm getting married, and now I'm thinking about raising a family. So I got in touch with with Robert Kennedy at Muscle Mag International.
Mhm.
Started writing for Robert Kennedy, and I worked for some oddball supplement company. The following year, I got with Steve Bleckman at Muscular Development. And while I was with Muscular Development is when I got with Viotech. And working for those two companies, I was able to put on the Colorado Pro Show. Same year I had my daughter in 2005, Asia. And so from there, I just kind of hit the ground running because I had the time to do the business of bodybuilding because I wasn't training and dieting for competition. And I never looked back. I never looked back at taking anything. I never looked back at wanting to get back on the stage and do it again. And I did not have a bitter taste in my mouth. I was doing muscle camps in Africa, in Ireland, in Australia, in Florida, in Las Vegas. I was giving away $10,000 awards the day after the Olympia at Gold's Gym for the Shawn Ray seminar. So I was very active doing the business of bodybuilding, and I found my calling. I found out that I enjoyed that more because I was making more people happy than just myself competing for a show.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think, yeah, it's everything was in line with that.
And I've been doing it ever since. I did some charity golf tournaments for fitness, and I brought on athletes and got them sponsored. By the way, Andrew Shaw is now working with me at Mutant to help bring her on board because I saw the potential in her. And of course, Sean Clarita is on board with Mutant, so represent Mutant, and I'm working with Panada Equipment, gym equipment. And of course, like I said, I'm emceeing shows around the world. So I'm just as active now. I just don't spend my days building my body. I exercise because I want to feel good. And if I feel good, I'm able to do the things that I want to do. And I realize if you stop using it, you're going to lose it. So you're not going to see me posing in the mirror anytime soon,
Yeah.
but my flexibility is very important to me. Training with people, I don't do that because it takes me to a place where I get competitive and I don't want to get hurt. But I think you had a small taste of it, Chris, because I had a bodybuilder who passed away, Derek Whitsitt, a former national champion, fly out with the training day with Shawn Ray back, I think it was like 95 or something, in 96.
Mhm.
And he came out thinking he was going to just have a nice training experience. And I was so in the zone. He
Mhm.
caught me in Olympia prep, and I beat him down that he changed his plane ticket to go home a day earlier.
Oh,
I was doing the John Brown on him. That's what I call it,
Uh-huh.
which is very reminiscent of what Mike Tyson was doing. Mike Tyson would pay people to come and spar with him because he practiced too hard. And I loved that when I heard him say that he had to pay people to come in the ring to practice because he was practicing too hard. So I thought, oh, great, I'll bring in bodybuilders to train with me, beat them up to the point where they quit. They'll go back to their gym, and someone out there is going to say, well, I'll go out there, I'll train with him. Well, this dude flew out to train with me. I beat him up so bad he left early, went to Diamond Gym. I didn't even hear of Diamond Gym at the time, but it was John Kemper. He owned one of the big East Coast gyms. He went back and told everybody at Diamond Gym how badass I was as a bodybuilder and a trainer. The irony of that is later on, 2010 and 11, I did a couple of muscle camps at Diamond Gym, and all of that came flooding back to me. They had heard about what I did to Derek. Well, the irony of it, Derek won the national championships, but he realized that his bodybuilding and my bodybuilding were like night and day. He was practicing, and I was a professional, so it really helped him. And I knew that you only have one shot at making a first impression. So rather than being a teacher, I tried to lead by example. And I wanted to take them to that place that I was at when I was a teenager coming up, getting the shit kicked out of me. That's where you make progress, right? Like, I don't want you to come in the gym and just think that you can train with me and I'm a pro. Like, if I get on the court with LeBron James, I expect him to run circles around me. But if LeBron dumbs down his game and tries to play at my level, how does he get better?
Right.
So my philosophy in the gym took me places that would have never taken me because I was such a small bodybuilder. But the reason I was so good at what I did was because I believed I had to elevate with the bigger, stronger bodybuilders. And if they were bigger and stronger, then I had to increase the reps. I had to increase the pace. I had to do drop sets, supersets, find a way to break these guys down so that I could level the playing field on them. And then I would gain their respect to a certain degree. So I had all these things going on as a bodybuilder, but in retirement, it's exercise in my mind rather than training.
That's such a topic that has been near and dear to me, and I know I talk to Chris about this on a regular basis. Is when you do this from such a young age, and then you walk away in your identity, and you know what it's like. You wake up every morning, it's 6 meals, you eat, breathe, and sleep bodybuilding. It's a 24-hour job for decades, and then when you walk away, um, how do you not be that competitive person still? Yourself, you're known for your physique in high school. Your 20s and 30s, you're walking around looking like a superhero. People are looking at you, commenting. To be able to just turn that off and go in a different direction. Was that difficult at all, or you just
Yeah.
no longer
Again,
have the
I
desire?
think you have to find something, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to replace. That's a big void.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, it was relieving that I didn't have to eat 6 times a day and that I could actually taste food. I still, even to this day, I'm 23 years in retirement, and the only thing I pretty much eat at home is breakfast. I eat twice a day. Once in a blue moon, I'll get 3 meals in, but 2 meals is all I need.
Yeah.
And I'm not a glutton. But there's something to be said for me when I go to a restaurant, um, and I'm thinking back of all those meals I had to cook by myself 6 times a
Hmm.
day when I lived alone, when I had just a dog, and I couldn't get too far away from the kitchen, and I was eating out
Both
of
that life.
Tupperware, and I'm cooking breakfast at the same time I'm making my lunch,
Yep.
and it's just cook, 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 cook. Those are things that people don't see, but I was doing it from 17 to 35, and I didn't have the luxury, and I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I didn't have the luxury of having someone make something nice, right? Like I didn't have anybody when I got into my first apartment. I didn't have anybody. If it was sink or swim, either I had to cook or I'd have to go out and find a girlfriend to cook. And I didn't want a girl to come in and screw me up. So, and when I say a girl screwing me up, I felt like a soldier at war. Like this is not a woman's place to come in and know what I'm doing, right? Because
Yeah.
those relationships can take you to some places that you don't want to go as an athlete. It's such a selfish game. And I
Yeah.
was watching my friends fight with their girlfriends and their spouses, and marriages crumble, and boyfriends and girlfriends, and it follows you in the gym and your mind space. So I was really good at not trying to fall in love and not try to have a relationship that would take me off my game.
Hmm.
um, but when all of that stuff was taken away, that structure, I was relieved I didn't have to chew and eat all that food and cook all that food. But more importantly, it was nice to be able to sit at a table and smell all your senses in an Italian or a Japanese or an Indian restaurant. Um, the things that I would sacrifice for so many years that I forgot about, even to this day, when I sit down to order a steak that I don't have to cook, it's a little extra for me than it is
Yeah.
the normal person.
Yeah.
You know, I love I
Fortunately.
love eating out. It's part of the fruit of my labor, that the reward I used to dream about when I was
Yeah.
bodybuilding.
That's why I like living in Chicago. We have a great food scene here, and when I'm in the off season, my wife and I will go out for one meal a week. And fortunately, I have a wife that understands this. And but it's funny you mentioned that I cooked my own meals in my apartment by myself for 15, 16, 20 years. I
Yeah,
still do it. My
yeah.
wife
You're not
will
alone. We're
often, but
not we're
I
not
still like,
alone.
yeah, no, I know how to cook this. I can do it. I've been doing it. Um,
But
but
don't
I,
get me
I
wrong. I still
also,
make I still make my eggs and my oatmeal.
yeah,
I still
it's
eat like
ingrained in
I
us.
eat like an athlete, but I like to indulge every once in a while. But again, it's one of those. It is a guilty pleasure for me to be able to go out and eat my tacos or eat my pizza or my hamburgers. But I'm also conscious that I'm into health and fitness, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. So I'll gravitate towards a salad and my fruit and vegetables and still eat good because I realize that I only have this body is going to carry me to the
Yeah.
grave, right? So I try to make sure I respect it, don't abuse it. And of course, all those years I was bodybuilding, I was tearing stuff down. That building up process only to tear it down. So I use it. It's still a tool for me. I gotta stretch. I have to still get to a place where I respect it. And if I go in there and just start slinging weight around, I don't want to come this far to have a rotator cuff, a knee
Hmm.
surgery, a double hip replacement. All of those things are real. And if you live long enough, they are waiting for you to just take off from a cold start and pull a hamstring, right? They're waiting for you to pick up the baby off the ground and tear a bicep. So when I do anything that requires any physicality, you can always believe I think about it before I actually do it at this stage.
Yeah, I know Chris has a career outside of bodybuilding. I do as well. White collar, work in tech and software. So, there's a life there when I do step away, but I think it's just that instinct and tunnel vision focus after a singular goal that you can't get anywhere else. And I always wonder, when bodybuilding's done, where else am I going to get that feeling? I'm going to have to put that energy into something else. But I
Well,
think,
let me tell you where to go. It will, the things that you're blocking out right now subconsciously, they will suddenly illuminate
yeah.
themselves. You don't see it because you're in this thing, and when you're in that tunnel vision, you know structure, and structure saves you from a lot of bullshit, right? I mean, some guys when they get outside of that structure, I'll use Craig Titus as an example because I just watched his movie where he killed the living girlfriend. But when you get too far away from that structure, you get involved with other things, and there's a lot of stuff out there that are dangerous, right?
Mhm.
He moved to Vegas, Sin City, got involved with partying, that took the partying to another level because he's partying with other real professional party people. And you have that addictive personality. You party a little bit too hard, you get into stuff that you never thought you'd be doing. I mean, Amy Winehouse, right? 27 years old, one of the most talented, gifted singers of her generation, and she's gone. Why? Because she abused the gift. Whitney Houston, it happens not only in bodybuilding but in sports, in entertainment. So finding that something else, sometimes it will come in the quiet time. You won't find it while you're on your journey. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of things I didn't do and I didn't allow to invite in because my routine was get up and go to the gym, come home, eat, sleep, rest, go back to the gym. And I blocked out the noise. I missed birthdays, I missed holidays, I missed functions, I missed all kind of stuff that I knew one day I would be able to enjoy, and I have a better appreciation for it now. But all of those things, they come in time.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you think you're going to miss or what you're giving up and sacrificing, that stuff comes when you have the time and availability to actually receive it.
And I think the four of us on this podcast, can all agree that that's what's beautiful and amazing about bodybuilding is it teaches us a discipline, it teaches us a work ethic, it teaches us how to take care of our body, how to eat healthy, so that when that time comes, we understand balance, we understand how to be disciplined, take care of ourselves, but then can, put that
Well,
energy and work ethic toward other things.
if you take that away from some people, they become wayward people, right? There's something else that's going to come along, and it's not always a good thing. I mean, listen, bodybuilding gave Arnold structure,
Mm.
right? He was a bodybuilder before he was an actor, and he was a bodybuilder before he was the governor. He was a bodybuilder before he became a real estate mogul. I mean, Arnold's portfolio on real estate is more impressive than his acting career, and we know what his we know the movies, right? And forget about his political aspirations. I don't know if you know any governors personally, but I mean, this is a bodybuilder that became a governor, right? So you know where you're at, but you don't know where you're going to wind up. I worked with and for Joe Weider. Joe Weider was the founder of bodybuilding. I worked with his brother Ben. I traveled the world. Ben Weider said, I'm a missionary for bodybuilding. I go and I plant these seeds and I want to grow our industry. I'm still doing that. I'm doing what he did. I'm doing what he actually told me he was. The guy that found Arnold Schwarzenegger used to sign my checks. And the guy that took over professional bodybuilding, I'm working for, Jake Wood. You take Jake Wood out of the equation, I may not be here. The guy that started the NPC, Jim Manion, the first NPC champion was Lee Haney in 1982. I started bodybuilding in 1983. Lee Haney was a guy that I was looking at going, wow, I'd love to be like that guy, right? In 1982, he wins the Nationals. 1987, I become a national champion 5 years later. And then 1 year after that, I'm standing on the Mr. Olympia stage with Lee Haney, Joe Weider in the front row, Ben Weider in the front row, Jim Manion's the head judge. Some of these things you just can't make this up, right? I didn't dream that into fruition. I got in the gym, I carved it out, I stayed the course. Now it doesn't happen for everyone, and I'm not a unicorn. Look, we've got a lot of champions in the Olympia platform. Their lives were changed. Lee Labrada, Rich Kaspari, Dorian Yates, and even Lee Haney. What bodybuilding did for me, forget about my chase for the Sandow. I met Chris Cormier in 1984 when I was in high school. I just had my 40-year reunion. We're still friends. Kevin
Mhm.
Levrone, 1991 was the first time 92, I met him on stage at the Olympia. Kevin's probably my closest friend in bodybuilding. And I don't know how many years ago 1992 was, but I know it's over 30. This has given me lifelong friends that I would have never had. And I've been a fan of this sport. So some of the guys that I was a fan of, Lee Haney, I got him on speed dial, right? I talked to Lee Haney all the freaking time. I
Yeah.
met Larry Scott, who won the very first Olympia, had that little crown in 1965. That was the year I was born. I presented him with a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010 at the World Masters Olympia. What are the odds that I would be in that position to do that? So bodybuilding's given me so much because I went to the gym, I ate my fish, I did my cardio, I did what the guys were doing in the magazines, and I went to the shows. This is a part that people miss. Some bodybuilders only go to the shows that they're in. I would go to the show by myself because I knew these are like-minded people, and I met people all around the world. I'm going to Switzerland, I'm going to Germany. I meet people that I'm growing old with. I met a guy whose son is named after me, and his son's 27 years old. He named his son after me. Just a fan. Came up, he showed me his driver's license. And holy crap, Shawn Ray, whatever. So bodybuilding has done so much more for me than forget about the Sandow Trophy. That was the goal. But without that goal, I don't have these 40-year relationships. I'm not friends with Jim Mannion, whose birthday's one day after my mom's birthday, so I never forget his birthday. You always call me a day before my birthday. I go, yeah, I call you on my mom's birthday because then I won't forget your birthday, right? But his grandson is running the federation now as the vice president. So
Yeah.
it's a very generational sport. The podcasts have made the world smaller, like the magazines used to. The magazines gave you that element of excitement because you had to wait for it. Right? They'd take 3 months for that magazine to come out. The news would be old, but you open it up and you can smell it, and you can study the biceps and the legs, and I'd be able to name the bodybuilder by just the picture of the body part. Now it's gotten so wide open that it's very hard to even idolize a bodybuilder because they're a dime a dozen. Everybody's got a pro card. Anybody can have their own platform and their own social media following. There's no real exclusivity to the game. I admire what Samson did. I admire what Derek did. But even Mr. Olympia, the shine is not as exclusive because you know what? We don't see them guest posing. Remember the bodybuilders used to come and be featured guest posers at these smaller shows so we can
Yeah.
look at them and aspire to be like them. I don't know the last show I went to that had like a legitimate guest poser that I could say, wow, Dorian Eastman. I remember Albert Beckles posing at my show in Australia. I was 20. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. I mean, without bodybuilding, I wouldn't have met my wife at the gym. I wouldn't know the Santa Marias. And, some of my, almost all my close friends are bodybuilders that I met in the gym and trained with at some time.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a fraternity for sure.
yeah. But to your point, with Mr. Olympia, I think even too, some of that mystique is gone and we're just desensitized because we see it on Instagram all day long. I
Yeah,
see
one.
pictures of Martin and Derek and Samson multiple times a day in my feed. So you just get used to seeing what they look like in the physique, and there's not that.
Yeah, one of the things as a consultant for the Olympia, I tried to push the idea that, there's no responsibility for the Olympians when they win. You're winning $600,000. If I win the Miss Universe title, right, $250,000, a condo in Manhattan for a year, I've got obligations. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, they have a tour lined up for me. I'm going to be on the morning news. I'm going to be talking at charities. I'm going to be featured at the football game. I'm going to be in some parade at the Rose Bowl. There's things that you have to do that are required of you when you win Miss Universe. You win the Mr. Olympia, it's pizza and beer. That guy can take the year off, do his own thing. There's no obligation. We don't know when or where we're going to see him. Nothing. And that is what's missing. And I presented that, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. Maybe they'll hear me now, but I think that if I'm giving away $600,000 to Chris, you're going to have to do a few more things than just come up and take my money. And you know what? You would appreciate it because I'm the one organizing your tour. I'm the one putting you out there. You're doing your own social media, but I'm also promoting you too from the Olympia platform so that you're going to be at that Pittsburgh Pro. You're going to be at that New York Pro. I'm going to make sure that you get a front row seat to, I don't know, the Super Bowl. I'm going to put you on the morning news. I'm going to have you talk to the charity. I'm going to have you at the Masters Golf Tournament. I should have an agency that markets my Olympia winners in a way that they can't do it themselves because you're a bodybuilder. That's what you do, right? You shouldn't have to go out and get an agent. I'm the Olympia platform. I'm going to bring on an agency. I know that Joe Weider used to have a travel agency because he would have all of his athletes that were under contract flying all over the country making appearances
Good
for him.
point. Yeah. That is the
And he,
product. You need a
yeah,
market.
and we were the ones endorsing his product. We were the one representing Weider. We were the one representing the Olympia. We don't have that. And we need to find a way back, because I would love to see the calendar of where Mr. Olympia is going to be appearing. And he should be appearing in a lot of different places, oddball places that we don't expect him to. You know, when you watch, for example, the WWE and you see, I don't know, Dennis Rodman or Mike Tyson, like, what the hell? You know, Jake Paul. You see these oddball characters with 20,000 arena, right? I mean, it's a big thing. Where's Mr. Olympia, right? The UFC is right there in Vegas. The Olympia is right there in Vegas. Where's Mr. Olympia? He may not be into it, but we're trying to reach out to an audience that's not familiar and bring them in. The Mr. Olympia takes place in Las Vegas the next day. Don't you think we should be on the morning news? Maybe Mr. Olympia, all of our Olympia winners, maybe. Maybe there should be some type of something. We're in Vegas. It's the bodybuilding capital. We've been there long enough that they should know we're there, and the media should be on top of it, and they're just not. So those are the things that I think I'm going to try to use my powers to get them fired up to do it. But I do think Mr. Olympia is one of those things that needs a little bit more shine to it. They need more responsibility to make them into the superstars that they're not, because they're not superstars if they're not getting the publicity. Publicity is king.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge point you bring up, Shawn, because like you said, I think Jay Cutler is probably, one of the best ambassadors we've had. And it's kind of just like after Jay, yeah, Phil did some stuff too. But then, like, of course, everyone was disappointed, when Big Ramy won it, because it's just like, well, he goes back to Egypt and it's like you said, well, see you next year,
Yeah, we didn't hear anything.
Yeah. And I
Crickets.
mean, like a guy like him, yeah, his English isn't the best, but he has a massive fan base to where, like you said, if he's at these football games and stuff, like you can't miss the guy.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
listen, some of these athletes, they go to these events just to be seen. I mean, they're
mhm,
sitting ringside at the major fights. They're sitting at the basketball games with court seats. You have to plant these guys in places where the media will see them and see our sport,
mhm,
right? We see the muscles. You got to be a bodybuilder. What do you do? Well, I'm Mr. Olymp. I'm the number one Mr. Olymp. So the bodybuilders are busy bodybuilding, but we don't have that media agency to put them out there. Gunther Schlierkamp became a known person. We don't have social media back then, but Gunther Schlierkamp, he was over there at Walmart. He's doing television commercials, making appearances in movies. We just don't have that. We don't have any stars, and so it's hard. We have individuals, right, that have their own following, but that doesn't open the gateway to the mass public. And I just think there should be some requirements when they win,
yeah,
I like that.
100%.
male and female, right? I mean, the girls are just they have to find their own way, but I don't know that there's athletes with the personality. Look, when a boxer just got done doing a 12-round fight and he's seeing stars and you put a mic in front of him, he sounds like an idiot, right? He may be articulate, but he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He just got his head bashed in. That's not his specialty. But there's typically some guy chirping over the shoulder like Don King. Yeah, you can come and see him fight at his next fight, blah, blah, blah. These guys need to have their little Olympia tour, maybe put them together instead of having them segregated, and they have to figure it out on their own. If you bring them together, 4 or 5 of them, Bumstead, Sampson, the girl that just retired, Sid Gillen, whoever, whatever you want, put them together and have them do the Olympia tour. The next contest you go to, let me know if you see an Olympia banner with a date and a poster on it, because I don't see that either.
Hmm.
We have the IFBB Pro League and the NPC, and I very rarely go to a show and see a big Olympia address, a big Olympia promotion.
Right.
It should be a requirement that the IFBB and the NPC are advertising their premier contest with a band. That logo behind you, you see that IFBB?
Hmm.
The logo. I had my show in Hawaii and it was digital. I had 2 digital screens. They wanted 4,000 a piece. That's 8,000. I probably could have bought 10 televisions to rent these things. So I said, no, I don't want them.
Hmm.
Shut it down. What I did though, I ruined it because my sponsors didn't have their constant flow of their commercial playing. And I didn't have the IFBB NPC logos popping up, going back and forth. So all you saw was my event logo. Of course, I'm going to get a call from the federation because at every show you have to have that logo.
Hmm.
I pay for that sanction. So Jim Mannion calls me up. I'm the redheaded stepchild. What are you doing? Your stage looked like shit. It didn't have my logo, blah, blah. So after I explained it, look, it was going to cost me 8,000 and you're not the only one. He kind of calmed down. But what he should be doing in the Olympia is that every one of those IFBB shows where you're giving out Olympia qualifiers, where's the Olympia banner?
Yeah.
Where's that's like the end of the road for every athlete that's trying to qualify. So there are things that I want to get done with the Olympia team that I'm frustrated with that I haven't. That if I think I say it enough and someone sends in enough clips, listen to what Shawn's saying, maybe they'll do it. It'll elevate our visibility. It'll elevate the excitement for the show. But we got to make stars out of our Olympians. And right now, the rate we're going, we don't have it. And the older guys are kind of losing respect for the younger guys because they just don't have that spit polish like shit. When Jake Cutler was walking around and Phil Heath, you knew they were Mr. Olympia. Like there was some swagger and they were seen in the right places. And we just don't see it today.
Yeah.
When you say I need to talk to the Olympia committee, what does that look like? Because I think we always hear about these things like the athletes rep, the Olympia committee, all these things.
Yeah.
I know how my job works. I
Yeah.
sit at a desk and I call into meetings and there's a structure. Are you joining meetings with certain individuals that have a position? Is there a schedule? Is there actual
I'm
structure
on
in
the
place?
payroll. I'm
Or
officially
is
on the
it
Olympia
or is
payroll.
it, hey, I have an idea and I shoot an email to Jim Mannion and whoever it might be?
Yeah, Jim Manny's not the guy. Jake Wood and Dan Solomon
Jake
run the
Wood
Olympia.
is the Olympia corrector, Dan Solomon. So is there a structure where you're joining meetings and discussing topics, or is it very free fall?
It's emails and phone calls. The problem is getting some focus. The
Hmm.
Olympia is a big, big machine, and everybody's kind of scatterbrained. It's hard to get everybody together collectively and also get something done. There's ideas, but to implement the idea, to follow through with the idea, to get that done, there's so many different tentacles out there that a lot of the ideas fall through the wayside,
Yeah.
including the running time of the event,
Yeah. It's like
including
you need a project manager, you need things in place, you
that's
need
it.
a structure, you need to understand a budget.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that is a work in progress,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that can be done, and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback when the Olympia is all over with. That's not when they want. That's not when they want to talk. That's what I want to talk because I want to tell you what was wrong, what was right. But nobody wants to hear bad news when they pull it off, right? So I'm that guy that's going to give it to you like black coffee. It's going to be straight. It's going to be honest. It'll be truthful. But if it doesn't have legs and I don't have follow up, it just doesn't get done. So I try to get in where I can fit in, but it's a work in progress getting some of the ideas implemented. Because
Shawn,
again, let's say Chris is Mr. Olympia, and I say, "Hey, Chris, you should be on tour. You should be at least making at least 5 appearances. You know what? You should be at New York Pro. You should be at the FIBO over in Germany. You need to be at the Arnold Classic. You definitely should be at the Pittsburgh Pro. And oh, by the way, you need to come out here to Jake Wood's show and sign autographs. Okay, all that sounds great. Now, how do we finance that?
who's going to
Who's
cover
buying?
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's covering?
Yep.
Well, I mean, listen. At the end of the day, we got corporate sponsors, right? The corporate sponsorship money just came in that is now increasing the prize money for first place, right? So, for example, Wolfpack Bag bought a corporate sponsorship. Let's just say it's 100,000. The IFBB spreads that amongst different $10,000 for first place. So my sanction fee, which was normally $8,000, is now going to be only 5,000 because 3,000 is going to be added onto the prize money. That's all great, but how about we put a budget together where we can set aside enough money for traveling for our Olympia representative that gives eyeballs on our game, and he becomes a spokesperson. He becomes an advocate to where we can get other corporate sponsors. Why isn't Monster a sponsor, right? You know, Monster Energy, they're all over the freaking BMX, and
And they have a relationship with
of
Flex
course they
Lewis,
do.
who is a
Yeah,
Yeah.
bodybuilder.
they have a relationship. There are people that have relationships with big corporate sponsors in our industry that don't have relationships with the Olympia platform. Those are things that I see and observe that I'd like to try to get done because Las Vegas right now is the entertainment capital of the world. I mean, we used to give away Cadillac Escalades and Hummers at the Arnold Classic. How do we get away from that? How come we can't get back to that, where we get a car dealership involved? How we get our Mr. Olympia looked at the same way that we can get Miss Universe looked at? I don't think it's rocket science, but I'm going to stay on the grind because, again, those are reasons I can get out of bed with those types of ideas.
Mhm.
Shawn, do you think we're ever going to see an Olympia again where the guys, the open guys, are not getting on stage at like 10:30 p.m. at night?
at the rate we're going now.
Yeah.
Because we're adding fit model now, so
Well,
make that 11 p.m.
just what we need, right? That's what we needed. And it's a mixed bag because I think it's just creating a place for anybody and everybody.
Mhm.
The physically handicapped, and we're going to have another division. While we have the fit division, fit model, we're going to have another. There's going to be one.
Will
Yeah.
be a men's version, I've heard.
They're going to
Yeah.
have the male version of that.
Yeah.
So, and don't be surprised if at some point it comes down to like one round where you're in your posing trunks and another round where you're wearing a suit, right? A model, a real model.
Mhm.
We don't need more divisions. What we need is a kind of a small divorce where we have Olympia in the summer and Olympia in the fall, or in the winter, I should say. If you take half of that Olympia, put it on in the summer, move it to a country like Dubai or Egypt or Saudi Arabia, or even Brazil, where we have a strong following, or China, we bring in a different audience. And that small component could be women's physique or women's bikini, 212, maybe board shorts, right? Maybe three divisions, and maybe our amateur, and you put that on in the summer.
Mhm.
That way you take all of that time that we have to cram into. You do realize the Olympia starts on Tuesday, okay? The Olympia starts on
The
Tuesday.
amateur divisions, yeah.
If you're an amateur, I'm coming to watch the Mr. Olympia. I'm not going on Tuesday. I'm going to come in on Thursday. Maybe I'm going to come in on Friday. I don't know, but I'm not going to come on Tuesday. So the amateurs have no audience. Maybe their loved ones, but if the amateurs want to stick around until Friday, they're going to have to spend a pretty penny because they got to burn up time on Wednesday,
Yep.
burn up time on Thursday. Now Friday's the prejudging. Now Saturday's the final. Now they go home on Sunday. It's gotten to a point where it's costing a small fortune. So if they break it up, you can have two Olympias a year. You just break them up into different divisions. So maybe the classic physique anchors women's bikini, the 212, the wheelchair, and the women's physique. There's that. Now you have the Open Olympia, board shorts, women's wellness, and I don't know, whatever other divisions are left. But you can do that twice a year. You can have the Olympia, and you can have one in the States and one in another country, and you build your fan base. The Middle East is freaking ripe with hungry fans, and they have to wait while we do our show in Vegas to watch it on a live stream or pay. If you live in India, you know how much you have to spend to watch the live stream?
Yeah.
Hopefully it works. But if you take the Olympia to the people, you can bring in a bigger audience, and you can do it twice a year.
Don't even get me started on 212. I have my opinion about that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how big like the Sharu Classic was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we got big shows outside the U.S. A lot of shows are very big and would be even
Brazil
bigger.
Coming up is a big show.
Well, if you just attach the name Olympia to it, you could do this in Brazil easy.
Yeah.
My solution to the long 10-30 weekend is you split it up. You have two Olympias a year instead of one.
Yeah. Shawn, how are we doing on time? I know you mentioned dinner.
Yeah, I have to eat, but right now I'm fasting, and that steak is calling me. I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning, so. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible, cover everything that you guys had. You have any more questions for me?
I got one more topic that's top of mind for me, and that's the 212. We've heard ideas kicked around for the last few years. Do we need a 212? Those guys should be able to compete in the Open. But we've seen great 212 competitors go up to the Open who, get beat by taller guys.
Sure.
So how do we make the 212 relevant? My idea, my opinion has always been let the winner of the 212 Olympia go against the Open winner. Imagine in September, hear me out. Imagine in September, Keon wins 212, Derek wins the Open, and now those two pose down at the end of the night for the best bodybuilder in the world. If Keon wins that, which he could, in my opinion, now the whole conversation for the year 2025, 2026 is the Open going to reclaim the title back?
100%. Listen,
it makes it relevant.
Well, it levels the playing field because, again, should Derek win, Keon's not going up against somebody as big as Dorian Yates like myself. And arguably, I could have taken him out. I don't know that there's a lot of depth in the 212. We're talking about Keon. After you get past first, second, and third, the quality gets a little murky.
Yeah.
It would be a nice look we saw Sean Clarita do the Open at the Arnold, and I believe he was seventh. He was second in the 212 at the Olympia. He got seventh at the Open Arnold, and that was without Hottie. So he probably would have been eighth if he was there. And not everybody that wins a 212 show can stand on that Olympia stage and do
Agreed.
battle with someone as good as Derek Lunsford. Derek is not a 212 bodybuilder. I believe
Yeah.
he's closer to 230 or 240. That being said, if you take the 212 away from the Olympia, which I fought hard to get, I created the 202 back in 2007.
Yeah.
I promoted and sponsored the very first 202 show in New York, and David Henry won that. It gave him a career, gave Kevin English a career in the 212 division. He won
Flex
three of
Lewis
those.
career.
Flex Lewis, as we went up to
Yeah.
212. So they had their own identity. It served its purpose. Now you take the 212 away from the Olympia weekend, and we have a show. I just don't think it needs to be held at the Olympia. You can hold that anywhere else. I think if you hold the 212 Olympia with, I don't know, wellness, women's physique, women's fitness at a different time of year, they become the focal point of that show.
Yep.
They're getting overlooked when you have these behemoths coming out 5 minutes after they leave the stage. And then it's almost not even a fair fight because we've seen the appetite. Now we got the main course. So I think the 212 Olympia needs to divorce itself from the Olympia weekend and be held separately. You hold that in the Middle East, you're going to have a sellout audience, and you'll probably have a lot more competitors because we're taking the show to them. They have a lot of guys that can't get over here. They have a lot of guys in Iran that can't get over here. Hadi Chupin almost didn't get over here. And we only know of Hadi Chupin because he found a way in. Otherwise, like Beirut in the open division, he's a great bodybuilder. Beirut is a top 5 Olympian that can't get out of Iran.
Yep.
But if you go to the Dubai Pro, you can see this kid. So I think the 212 needs to be taken away from the Olympia platform, along with maybe 3 other divisions, be held at a separate time of the year, ideally in the Middle East. And we would probably see guys that we've never even seen before because they're not able to travel.
Yeah.
It's a great division.
Dubai 212 show last year was the deepest and most competitive.
I was there, yeah. And Keon is like Derek. He can get out of that 212 division to go in the open because he may be standing next to someone like Derek. And that'd be an interesting comparison, but you don't know until you're actually there because what happens to some 212 guys, they'll come up and they don't look better when they get bigger. And Keon's got to be careful. That weight category may be the reason he looks so good. And by the way, second place is Sean Clarita at 177, not Big Samson. He's not standing next to Samson. He's not standing next to freaking Andrew Jack. He's not standing next to, a Nick Walker or these thick bodybuilders. So 177 can look a lot smaller when you're standing next to guys 250 plus.
Yeah, good point.
Keon's on the verge. And if I was him, I mean, even this year, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to do the Olympia and I'm going to go and open right after because I'm already dialed in. I'm going to go and open, test the waters, see how I do. I don't have anything to lose. Shit, if I qualify and I win a show, I'm going to the Open Olympia, just like Derek did. That's a graduation. There's more incentive. Listen, if the guy goes in the Olympia and places in, I think, the top 4 or 5, he makes the same money as he does. Makes the same money as winning the 212.
But I think if you give the 212 a bigger platform and notoriety, it will also draw more people from Classic that want to continue to grow, but they're short. Like we've seen now with Breon, I believe he's moving to 212. So
he should have done that a couple of years ago. But nonetheless, I don't know that there's enough depth in the 212 where someone's going to throw a bunch of money at it. You got one or two guys that are good. We saw the second best bodybuilder in 212 get 7th in the open category at the Olympia. So there's not a lot of depth in that Olympia contest for the 212, but there's a market for it. I wouldn't get rid of it. I just think it needs to be separate from the Olympia weekend and held at a different venue.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Shawn, I've been going to the Olympia for 20 years. And it's exactly like you said. It's like, I mean, I'm a bodybuilding fan, like at the core.
Yeah.
But it's just like you said, I love the 212 just as much as any division. But when I'm there, we're like, hey, let's get this over with so I can watch the open because that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and it's not a fair fight, right? It's not even like prelims in a boxing match. You're only interested in the result, the final result. And by the way, not for nothing, when they have their prejudging at like 12 noon over at the expo, they look a lot better than when they have their show at the finals. I like that afternoon prejudging, right? So giving that away basically at the expo I think it takes a little bit of shine off of the finals as well, because they're almost like thrown in there, and it's an appetizer for us to watch the bigger guys. There should be some space between those guys.
Yeah. Well, I guess one final question for you, Shawn. What would you say is like the greatest moment of your career or like the most memorable if you had to pick one?
Yeah, winning the national championships, earning my pro card. You got to remember, I was in high school, 1983. I'm 17 years old. I'm starting to bodybuild with a guy that was already two-time Mr. Universe, three-time Mr. World, driving around in a Mercedes. He was friends with the LA Rams, and the Rams were right here, Anaheim Rams at the time, Eric Dickerson and Jim Everett and all the football players. We'd go to eat at like El Torito or some of the nightclubs, and the football players would be there with their fancy cars. And John had his little Mercedes. He's in the magazines, and I know him. He's my friend. I'm like the shadow. I'm the guy that goes and gets in the phone numbers from the hot chicks, right? I'm changing his weights. I'm the little runner. And I went from being a flunky and a little runner to being a professional bodybuilder driving a Mercedes Benz, being on the cover of a magazine, traveling to the places that I used to take John Brown to the airport and drop him off, come back and pick him up.
Hmm.
Now it's my turn. And it happened in like a 4-year period, right? From 1983 to 1987. And it was not an overnight thing, because in 1983, as a skinny 17-year-old playing football, if you had told me 4 years out of high school, I'm going to be the guy in the magazines working for Joe Weider, surpassing John Brown, would have been totally unbelievable. We've seen stranger things happen. It was like hitting the lottery, right? But it took 4 years for me to actually hit the lottery. Then I had to stay there. But getting Jim Mannion phone.
He'll hop on again. Then we'll close out.
There he is.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Sir.
my daughter blowing me up. Okay, I'll wrap this up really quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, going from 1983 to 1984 to actually becoming my mentor and John Brown. By the way, I only worked out with John Brown for about a year. He was all over the place, and he lived close. But by the time I got to the Mr. California, John Brown was like in my rear view. I couldn't be bothered. I was driving back and forth to Venice Beach. I was training with different people, but I had enough of the raw materials to become him. He knew nothing about dieting, but I was absorbing all of these other things: Roy Littlemar, Bob Paris, Mike Christian, Victor Richards, the Barbarian Brothers. I mean, I was learning from a lot of different sources that John Brown wasn't somebody that knew these things. John Brown would eat hamburger helper at McDonald's and drink Coca-Cola and Kool-Aid, and none of this stuff that I could handle. But he could train his ass off, and I took that from him and I kept it. So when it was my turn to fly out to New Jersey by myself for the national championships, and follow behind Lee Haney, Bob Harris in 1983, Mike Christian in 1984, Phil Williams in 85, Gary Strydom in 86. Then it was me. I mean, that was it. I showed my mom and dad that, look, man, all those naked guys on my walls, this is why I did it. This big ass trophy I got, this is what I brought back. This contract I just got with Joe Weider, that's because I won this show over here. They couldn't put two and two together. And I wasn't really a media guy at the time. I had a couple magazine exposure, but the bottom dropped out. I was on covers. I was on Muscle Mag, Flex, Muscle Fitness, every bodybuilding magazine, Ironman. And my parents were just like, didn't know what the hell hit them. They thought I was a multi-millionaire because every time they saw a cover, they thought I was getting $1 million. But I was a good actor, right? I went out and I was able to muster up enough money to buy my Corvette. I was looked at differently. People treated me different. And to sustain that, I couldn't take my foot off the gas in the gym. I knew why they looked at me that way. I knew why I got these accolades, and I wanted more, right? And when I found out how big the world was, it became like hitting the lottery, because then I could call Brazil, I could call Australia, I could call China, I could call Russia. I was all over the place because what I was doing here was happening in all four corners of the world. And I love history. And suddenly I was able to live out my history in high school and in college by going to places that I'd only read about. I like to tell the story that I did 4 book reports on Nelson Mandela, and I had the opportunity to go to South Africa, put my hands on that cell. I remember writing the stories about the rock quarry that he used to break up the rock and carry the quartz back and forth. I saw the rocks. I saw the quarry. I got the tour from an inmate that used to be in prison there. He's now doing the tour, and I'm hearing it from him. He followed behind Nelson Mandela's freedom or incarceration, but I was there. I was like, how did I wind up in this freaking story? I used to.
All from lifting weights.
It was all bodybuilding, and again, that's just my story. Like Gaspari, Haney, Labrada, they all have the same story. Jay Cutler, we were all living in an era where it was fantasy. Like, they're paying me money to do this? I can't freaking believe I'm getting paid to do this. And so then it became, as you get older, how do you sustain it? How do you survive it? How do you hang on to some of it? And so that's where I kind of started pivoting into areas that I knew my body couldn't take me, but my mind could, my experience could. And so becoming a promoter, becoming a world ambassador for all the places I went with the supplements, with the gym equipment, with the contest promotions, I was able to eke out a living that I still don't feel like it's a job. And yet I'm still living the dream. Me and Jay Cutler always text each other, living the dream. We're living the dream, but it's all because of the gym, the bodybuilding, the relationships that we formulated. The majority of my friends, and I call them friends, majority of my family are bodybuilders. Majority of my friends are fans that became friends. I met people in the oddball place that's, at the in the airport, some guy moving my bags around, remember me from the 90s, and we exchange emails or Instagram or whatever, and we become friends. I always wanted a Lamborghini Diablo when I was coming up. I got a dog in 1991 when I was driving a Ferrari, and I named my dog Lamborghini Diablo. I called him Diablo for short. 1991. True story. I go to the 94 Mr. Olympia. I grab my breakfast plate, and I don't have a place to sit down, and there's a guy sitting by himself. Say, hey, do you mind if I sit here and eat this food? Mind you, people are walking around me. He says, yeah, go ahead and sit down. I sit down. I said, where are you from? He said, Arkansas. I said, who are you with? Myself. I said, who are you here to see? You. You flew here from Arkansas to see me? So yeah, I came out to see you, man. You're one of my favorite bodybuilders. Like, oh, that's cool. So I'm kind of blown up. We're eating and we get to talking. What do you do? I sell cars. Oh, okay. I just now recently bought a Lotus Esprit. Oh, you should have never bought that car. I said, why? Oh, that's a piece of crap. I said, well, what should I have gotten? So what do you want? I said, well, my dream car is a Lamborghini. I can't afford a Lamborghini. He goes, oh, we do trade. We buy and sell cars that could get you a Lamborghini. You can help me get a Lamborghini? All right, that's cool. Let me get your number, man. We exchange numbers. I go up to my room. Now I'm in my room posing. I think, you know what? Let me call this dude up. I called him back to his room. I said, hey, can you come up here and watch me pose? Just count my reps. I had my girlfriend that was with me there, but I didn't want her to see me doing all this stuff. So Dan comes up to my room, and he's putting me through it. Counts from 10. I'm holding it for 10 seconds. I'm doing it from the back.
And this is a fan?
This is a fan. I imagine in the back of my mind, he's fucking blown away because he's in my room.
The VIP fan experience.
Yeah. But he was older than me. He's like 10 years older. So, and I was safe. He was by himself, and I needed this because my girlfriend was there, and I couldn't do this with her distracting me. So he comes up, he puts me through it. I break a sweat. Tell him to meet me in the lobby as we go over to the show. Now he's basically become my bag boy, right? And said, hey, sit with my girl. Sit with my girl. Here's my badge. So now he's got a fucking front row seat. He's actually coming backstage with me. He's literally in my camp. But his conversation was so calming and so soothing that I felt safe with him. And in the back of my mind, I remember he said he can get me a Diablo. So we go through this whole freaking weekend, and prejudging is over, and he's sitting there telling me, dude, I think you beat this guy. Mind you, my girlfriend thinks I was going to be Mr. Olympia before I ever got there. I think you beat him. I'm like, what? You're way better. So I'm getting this hype, right? And now I'm starting to hear it from other people. By the time the show was over and I get second place, he says, so do you still want that Diablo? I said, hell yeah, I want that Diablo. He goes, not now, but we'll get you one. That was in 94. I'm still friends with him to this day. So how many years is that? Wow. In 1999, he calls me up. He says, hey, man, you ready to get that Diablo? 99. This is 5 years later. I'd done 4 more Mr. Olympia contests. I said, yeah, but, I'm not sitting on a bucket load of money. We'll get you the car. I'll work with you. He works out a deal with me where I wound up getting the car. And I got this red Lamborghini Diablo VT. As a matter of fact, it's in one of my Battle for the Olympics. I think it's the 2000. But to this day, Dan English is my friend. And one thing that he did that stands out, he brought a guy to Long Beach. He wanted to meet me to find out how he could become a Masters professional, go compete in the Masters Olympia. I introduced him to Wayne DeMillia. The guy goes out, qualifies, competes in, and he wins the 2001 Masters Mr. Olympia. I think it was 2001, and his name was Don Youngblood. That was Dan English's best friend, Don Youngblood. Don Youngblood was in my room in 1997 when I was posing at the Mr. Olympia along with Dan. I was there by myself in New York. Dan English, Don Youngblood, doing exactly what he did in 94, but he brought his friend Don Youngblood, who I didn't know. Don would go on to win the Masters Mr. Olympia that year, and I would wind up getting my Lamborghini Diablo. And Don passed away in 2005, but he wound up competing in the Mr. Olympia against my wishes. He beat Vince Taylor, told him, "Don't go to the Olympia. You're too old. You're 52. It's not going to happen." Of course, he didn't. He went. He got dead last. But nonetheless, that tells you how small this thing is. I got my Diablo from a fan that came to Atlanta that I never met before that was there to see me. Not only that, he went to every Olympia I was in until I actually retired. So I had to tell that story because some things that you just don't think are attainable or possible in life, they can happen if you stay the course. I got that car. My dog was still alive at the time. My dog died in 2004. But I got so many stories like that where I just happily ran into some person. And mind you, I'm polarizing. Chris, I don't know if your wife knows, but I'm one of the guys that you either love or you hate. And
We
the
watched,
guys that
we watched
we
the final
know.
countdown
We-
together. She's seen them all with me.
Yeah.
I'm an acquired taste, by the way. But 1994, that fan became my friend. He's my friend to this day. And those are stories that I can tell, Kevin can tell, Flex can tell, Chris. That's the beauty of the fraternity of bodybuilding.
Dude, that's incredible. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah, I had a good ride. I get goosebumps. I get
Still
goosebumps.
going.
I'd say it's more than a good run. I mean, you're the reason I got into bodybuilding. So of course, I think even unbiased, I had you winning either the 94 or 96 myself.
I'll take it.
But like you said, it's forget about the trophies. You built something that money can't buy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I said the same thing you said to John Brown, to Chris Dickerson. It's good to give people that respect, right? Because without Chris Dickerson at 42 years old winning the Olympia, my height or even shorter, I wouldn't have thought it would be possible for me to actually get to the Olympia. So he showed me that I could probably get there because he did it. And then they become your friends, right? My idols became my friend because I put myself out there. I mean, I was a shy person. And to get up on stage in just a thong, I mean, to become the guy that's on the wall behind you, or like when I started out, I couldn't do it. And then I started shaving my legs. My dad's going, "What the hell's going on?" I'm looking at these naked guys. The girls are going, "What's going on?" And just staying the course gave me confidence. It made me more confident in other things that I was able to do. Then I became a public speaker, television commentator. I got way outside my comfort zone. And I got to the place where it's like, I didn't think anything was, I felt everything was possible. And there's nothing that I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave you with one last gem, because I did a podcast the other day. I talked about going to a concert to meet Toni Braxton, and I wound up in her dressing room. There's another time I went to a Prince concert with John Brown, and we wound up backstage at the Prince concert. There's so many things like that I have that are very random that a normal person riding in the car with me would be like, "No way." And because of the confidence I built through bodybuilding, I'm like, no is a 2-letter word. I've been rejected a million times. Let's try. And if you don't try, you're bound to fail. So I'm of that belief that there's some things you just have to get out of your comfort zone and get out there and try to do. And because of that, I've made friends in places I never thought I would, because I'm receptive. I sat down with Dan English and we're still friends. That's the gist of the story.
Yep.
Can't be scared.
Well, hey, man, we really appreciate you coming on. This was outstanding. Definitely have a safe trip tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll chat soon, man.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys.
Great speaking with you.
Thank you,
All
brother.
right, have a good one. Take care. Thank you for having me.